Live. Cool. Hi everyone. My name's Sandy Levesque. I'm here with Jackie Ramos Bayer in New York. I'm in Vence in France, one village just after it. This is Think and Grow New Rich, the study group to help you unprogram from lack or poverty consciousness using the brilliant book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So in case you didn't see yesterday's episode, we're reading about sex and the transmutation of sex energy to create success. I'm just trying to find the name of the chapter, actually. I don't think it's quite that. But basically, this is a really fascinating chapter because it's all about how the energy that you feel when you're in love or when you're having sex on a regular basis is actually a massive creative energy, and that all the successful people Napoleon studied had this energy. They had a partner. They really sort of made it a part of their life, and they didn't just use it for sex. They used that energy to be creative. So they didn't just use it like animals. It's actually the last sentence we read yesterday, which is quite funny. He's like, where most people fail to use it is because they feel that urge and they think they always have to have sex. Whereas successful people, they feel the urge, and either they have sex or they do something creative. So in fact, what the last sentence was, the majority of people lower themselves through misunderstanding and misuse of this great force to the status of the lower animals. Which I thought was quite funny. So hi Geraldine and Glenn.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Giz. How you guys doing?
Doing fine.
Yeah? Cool.
It's early.
Yeah, right.
But
Oh, it's about 11:15 for us in Europe for Geraldine and I. So
I think this whole chapter is pretty fascinating because it does show you, I mean, that is an important part of the human being, right? And well, of course, advertising uses that a lot, right? You know what I mean? Don't they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To get people to click on stuff, and yeah. So here he's looking at how you can use it to become really creative and
convert it. Yes. Yeah. Into a transmute it, as they say, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you feel that energy, you sense the energy, and then instead of always doing the same thing with it, in this case, going out and having sex, you recognize that energy, and you're like, okay, I could also go and write, 2 chapters on a book, or go and create a product or an event or something, that's using creative energy.
Yeah.
So today's chapter is actually, passage rather, sorry, is called Why People Seldom Succeed Before 40. So it's on page 169. Is there anybody who would like to read?
Can I read?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So 169.
Oh, I'm there already. I just have to screen share.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
We'll mute ourselves. And just for anyone watching, if you want to come onto the Hangout at any time, you can join in, even if it's halfway through, but just mute yourself if we're reading so that we don't get off the page.
Okay, is that good?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, and you can hear me okay? Okay, why men seldom succeed before 40. I discovered from the analysis of over 25,000 people that men who succeed in an outstanding way seldom do so before the age of 40, and more often they do not strike their real pace until they are well beyond the age of 50. This fact was so astounding that it prompted me to go into the study of its cause most carefully, carrying the investigation over a period of time of more than 12 years. This study disclosed the fact that the major reason why the majority of men who succeed do not begin to do so before the age of 40 to 50 is their tendency to dissipate their energies through overindulgence and physical expression of the emotion of sex. The majority of men never learn that the urge of sex has other possibilities, which far transcend in importance, that of mere physical expression. The majority of those who make this discovery do so after having wasted many years at a period when the sex energy is at its height prior to the age of 45 to 50. This usually is followed by noteworthy achievement.
Jackie,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt. Do you mind saying people when it says men? I know
Oh
it's
yeah, I'm sorry. No,
um,
absolutely.
I'm thinking about making this just like a general policy because he shouldn't have just ignored women. So it's not your fault. I just wanted to try and like see if we can
No, I'm
implement
so glad you
that.
said that.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
so I'll say the lives of many men and women,
Yeah,
or
or
just
people is
the lives
quicker.
of many people. Okay,
Yeah,
the
and don't
lives of
worry,
many.
and sometimes we forget as well.
Is that where I am? The lives of many people up to and sometimes well past the age of 40 reflect a continued dissipation of energies, which could have been more profitably turned into better channels. Their finer and more powerful emotions are sown wildly to the four winds. Out of this habit of the male grew the term sowing his wild oats. The desire for sexual expression is by far the strongest and most impelling of all the human emotions, and for this very reason, this desire, when harnessed and transmuted into action, other than that of physical expression, may rise one to the status of a genius. One of America's most able business people frankly admitted that his or her attractive secretary was responsible for most of the plans he or she created. Well, I think I just have to read the he part here, right? He admitted that her presence lifted him to heights of creative imagination such as he could experience under no other stimulus. One of the most successful men in America owes most of his success to the influence of a very charming young woman who has served as his source of inspiration for more than 12 years. Everyone knows the man to whom this reference is made, but not everyone knows the real source of his achievements. History is not lacking in examples of people who attained in the status of genii as the result of the use of artificial mind stimulants in the form of alcohol and narcotics. Edgar Allan Poe wrote The Raven while under the influence of liquor, dreaming dreams that mortal never dared to dream before. James Whitcomb Riley did his best writing while under the influence of alcohol. Perhaps it was thus he saw the ordered intermingling of the real and the dream, the mill above the river and the mist above the stream. Robert Burns wrote best when intoxicated. For old lang syne, my dear, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. But let it be remembered that many such people have destroyed themselves in the end. Nature has prepared her own potions with which people may safely stimulate their minds so they vibrate on a plane that enables them to tune into fine and rare thoughts which come from no man from no man or woman knows where. No satisfactory substitute for nature's stimulants has ever been found. It is a fact well known to psychologists that there is a very close relationship between sex desires and spiritual urges, a fact which accounts for the peculiar behavior of people who participate in the orgies known as religious revivals, common among the primitive types. The world is ruled, and the destiny of civilization is established by the human emotions. People are influenced in their actions not by reason so much as by feelings. The creative faculty of the mind is set into action entirely by emotions and not by cold reason. The most powerful of all human emotions is that of sex. There are other mind stimulants, some of which have been listed, but no one of them, nor all of them combined, can equal the driving power of sex. A mind stimulant is any influence which will either temporarily or permanently increase the vibrations of thought. The 10 major stimulants described are those most commonly resorted to. Through these sources, one may commune with infinite intelligence, or enter, at will, the storehouse of the subconscious mind, either one's own or that of another person, a procedure which is all there is of genius. A teacher who has trained and directed the efforts of more than 30,000 salespeople made the astounding discovery that highly sexed men and women are the most efficient salespeople. The explanation is that the factor of personality known as personal magnetism is nothing more nor less than sex energy. Highly sexed people always have a plentiful supply of magnetism. Through cultivation and understanding, this vital force may be drawn upon and used to great advantage in the relationships between people. This energy may be communicated to others through the following media. 1. The handshake. The touch of the hand indicates instantly the presence of magnetism, or the lack of it. 2. The tone of voice. Magnetism, or sex energy, is the factor with which the voice may be colored or made musical and charming. 3. Posture and carriage of the body. Highly sexed people move briskly and with grace and ease. 4. The vibrations of thought. Highly sexed people mix the emotion of sex with their thoughts and may do so at will, and in that way may influence those around them. 5. Body adornment. People who are highly sexed are usually very careful about their personal appearance. They usually select clothing of a style becoming to their personality, physique, complexion, etc. When employing salespeople, the more capable sales manager looks for the quality of personal magnetism as the first requirement of a salesperson. People who lack sex energy will never become enthusiastic nor inspire others with enthusiasm, and enthusiasm is one of the most important requisites in salespersonship, no matter what one is selling. The public speaker, orator, preacher, lawyer, or salesperson who is lacking in sex energy is a flop, as far as being able to influence others is concerned. Couple this with the fact that most people can be influenced only through an appeal to their emotions, and you will understand the importance of sex energy as a part of a salesperson's native ability. Master salespeople attain the status of mastery in selling because they, either consciously or unconsciously, transmute the energy of sex into sales enthusiasm. In this statement may be found a very practical suggestion as to the actual meaning of sex transmutation. The salesperson who knows how to take his mind off the subject of sex and direct it in sales effort with as much enthusiasm and determination as he would apply to its original purpose has acquired the art of sex transmutation, whether he or she knows it or not. The majority of salespeople who transmute their sex energy do so without being the least aware of what they are doing or how they are doing it. Transmutation of sex energy calls for more willpower than the average person cares to use for this purpose. Those who find it difficult to summon willpower sufficient for transmutation may gradually acquire this ability. Though this requires willpower, the reward for the practice is more than worth the effort. The entire subject of sex is one with which the majority of people appear to be unpardonably ignorant. I'm going to read that again. The entire subject of sex is one in which the majority of people appear to be unpardonably ignorant. The urge of sex has been grossly misunderstood, slandered, and burlesqued by the ignorant and the evil-minded for so long that the very word sex is seldom used in polite society. Men and women who are known to be blessed, yes, blessed, with highly sex natures are usually looked upon as being people who will bear watching. Instead of being called blessed, they are usually called cursed. Millions of people, even in this age of enlightenment, have inferiority complexes which they develop because of this false belief that a highly sex nature is a curse. These statements of the virtue of sex energy should not be construed as justification for the libertine. The emotion of sex is a virtue only when used intelligently and with discrimination. It may be misused, and often is, to such an extent that it debases instead of enriches both body and mind. The better use of this power is the burden of this chapter. It seemed quite significant to the author when he made the discovery that practically every great leader whom he had the privilege of analyzing was a man or woman whose achievements were largely inspired by a man or woman. In many instances, the person in this case was a modest, self-denying spouse of whom the public had heard but little or nothing. In a few instances, the source of inspiration has been traced to the other person. Perhaps such cases may not be entirely unknown to you. Intemperance in sex habits is just as detrimental as intemperance in habits of drinking and eating. In this age in which we live, an age which began with the World War, intemperance in habits of sex is common. This orgy of indulgence may account for the shortage of great leaders. No man or woman can avail themselves of the forces of his or her creative imagination when dissipating them. Man or woman is the only creature on earth which violates nature's purpose in this connection. Every other animal indulges its sex nature in moderation and with purpose which harmonizes with the laws of nature. Every other animal responds to the call of sex only in season. People's inclination is to declare open season. Every intelligent person knows that stimulation in excess through alcohol, drink, and narcotics is a form of intemperance which destroys the vital organs of the body, including the brain. Not every person knows, however, that an overindulgence in sex expression may become a habit as destructive and as detrimental to creative effort as narcotics or liquor. The sex-mad person is not essentially different than a dope-mad person. Both have lost control over their faculties of reason and willpower. Sexual overindulgence may not only destroy reason and willpower, but it may also lead to either temporary or permanent insanity. Many cases of hypochondria, imaginary illness, grow out of habits developed in ignorance of the true function of sex. From these brief references to the subject, it may be readily seen that ignorance of the subject of sex transmutation forces stupendous penalties upon the ignorant on the one hand, and withholds from them equally stupendous benefits on the other hand. Widespread ignorance on the subject of sex is due to the fact that the subject has been surrounded with mystery and beclouded by dark silence. The conspiracy of mystery and silence has had the same effect upon the minds of young people that the psychology of prohibition had. The result has been increased curiosity and desire to acquire more knowledge on this verboten subject. And to the shame of all lawmakers and most physicians by training best qualified to educate youth on that subject, information has not been easily available. Seldom does an individual enter upon highly creative effort in any field of endeavor before the age of 40. The average person reaches the period of his or her greatest capacity to create between 40 and 60. These statements are based upon analysis of thousands of men and women who have been carefully observed. They should be encouraging to those who fail to arrive before the age of 40 and to those who become frightened of the approach of old age around the 40-year mark. The years between 40 and 50 are, as a rule, the most fruitful. Man should approach this age not with fear and trembling, but hope and eager anticipation. If you want evidence that most men do not begin to do their best work before the age of 40, study the records of the most successful men or women known to the American people, and you will find it. Henry Ford had not his pace of achievement until he had passed the age of 40. Andrew Carnegie was well past 40 before he began to reap the reward of his efforts. James Hill was still running a telegraph key at the age of 40. His stupendous achievement took place after that age. Biographies of American industrialists and financiers are filled with evidence that the period from 40 to 60 is the most productive age of man. Between the ages of 30 and 40, man begins to learn, if he ever learns. Man or woman begins to learn, if he or she ever learns, the art of sex transmutation. Discovery is generally accidental, and more often than otherwise, the person who makes it is totally unconscious of their discovery. He or she may observe that their powers of achievement have increased around the age of 35 to 40, but in most cases, he or she is not familiar with the cause of this change. That nature begins to harmonize the emotions of love and sex in the individual between the ages of 30 and 40 so that he or she may draw upon these great forces and apply them jointly as stimuli to action.
Jackie, I think
Yes.
we can stop there because
Sure. Cool.
the chapter doesn't have many breaks, so it'll just
Okay.
keep going otherwise for a long time.
Cool.
Thank you so much for reading and for switching up the his and hers. I sort of threw that.
Yeah, that's not easy to do on the fly, you know, right?
Well, I don't know. Like I think what's easier than saying his or her is there. You know.
Okay.
You say there or people. Once you've done it a couple of times, it just
It starts to come naturally.
yeah. Like the first time, it's not that easy, but it does get easier. And I just think, you know, words are really powerful. So if we're always reading about men, it just doesn't really. I don't know. It just doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah, you have to be careful there, though. Remember, you had that problem with YouTube, right, where people are, you know, I don't know.
I know.
No.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I'll find a way though. If people keep doing that, then.
But you know, this chapter is so rich in material. I mean, and so. I mean, there's so many instances you can think of in your own life, right, where these things come into play. You know. It's pretty amazing, you know.
Yeah. In fact, if I can share something I read this morning that was so crazily connected to this, it was really inspiring. It was actually the story of a baseball player in the 1930s who, around this time actually, and he'd been signed up to a really bad team, like towards the end of his career, and the chips were down, you know, like his family were disappointed, he was disappointed. But he decided, and it also meant a very low pay, like he was being paid $25 a month. And this was back in 1930. So I just read this blog this morning, and basically what happened is he decided that even though he didn't really want to, he wasn't as excited to play for this team, and everyone kind of expected him to just sort of peter out, he was going to be really enthusiastic. Even if he didn't feel like it, he was going to fake it, you know, and he on his first day that he played, he went onto the field with total crazy enthusiasm, like just running like a madman, running around like whooping, and everyone was, and the newspapers wrote about him because he made such an impression. And within like that same month, his pay had gone up from $25 a month to $185, and he ended up becoming a very successful player in the league that year because he just made this decision. And he said in the blog I read, you know, I didn't feel like being enthusiastic, but I just made myself do it, and everything around me started to change. And so, just a great example of what Napoleon's saying, that part of that magnetism is enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did anyone think of Bill Clinton when we were reading this chapter?
No, I didn't really think about Bill Clinton. However, I mean, there's no doubt about it. He has great sexual magnetism.
Yeah.
I was thinking of John F. Kennedy.
Ah, yeah, another
yes.
person.
Oh, another
Yeah.
great example. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this book's even before that, so like, who is he talking about? Do you
Yeah,
think?
I know.
There was one person that he mentioned, but didn't. I mean, I couldn't think of who it was. He said everybody should know who this person was,
Yeah.
but I couldn't dig that out of my brain. You know,
They probably
When,
did
what
back
year was this
then.
published?
19.
like 25 or something,
The
Right.
first time, yeah, I think 1925. Yeah, in the 20s.
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah. But when people, I've read accounts of people that met Bill Clinton or meet Bill Clinton, and he's very he'll always like touch people on the shoulder, and
Yes.
make a big effort to remember people's names. Like even when he was at university in England, actually at like Cambridge, I think, he wrote people's names down so that when the next time he would meet them, he would remember it. And he sort of, I think he developed that. He already had that magnetism, but he, you know,
Enhanced
deliberately kind of developed it. And
Yeah.
sometimes didn't control it, as we all know. I was just thinking of some women who've had that same kind of magnetism. And anyone got any ideas?
I don't know. Madonna pops up to my mind first off, but
Oh, Madonna, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I bet you in France, Coco Chanel, I think, right?
Yeah, well done, Glenn. Yeah, exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and Edith Piaf, too, right? Edith
Yeah.
Piaf had a tremendous, appeal, right? Appeal, you know?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
an American one I can think of is Georgia O'Keeffe.
Oh, of
Because
course, yes.
Alfred
Amazing.
had,
Yeah.
such a strong relationship. Alfred Stieglitz. Do you know who Georgia O'Keeffe is? She's a famous painter from, I don't know, maybe the 40s and 50s, 60s.
Yeah, and her art is very, very.
She painted these huge flowers.
Yeah, very important art. And she painted in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She arrived at Santa Fe, New Mexico. That's where she did a lot of her work there. But
her husband was a famous photographer, a black and white photographer, and they definitely had a lot of sexual energy in their relationship. And he lived in New York, and she would go back and forth from New York City to New Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So.
And I think even Maya Angelou, when you look
I was just thinking of her.
her life, right? I mean, and she was quite a beauty when she was a young woman too. I mean, she did stage things. I mean, just amazing person, you know. I mean, and she had that energy. She had that, and she overcame a lot of difficult obstacles in her life, right? To do that, you know. So she transmuted things that were, that had to be done, right? You know.
Yeah, she went through some horrible things, and because I guess it's also it's like being attractive, but I don't think you even have to be attractive to have what he's talking about. You know, like attractive is such a subjective word anyway. It's like we all have different definitions of what an attractive person is, but I think it's interesting when you look at that, because sometimes there's celebrities like Madonna is very sexual in her visual, but I don't think she's very well, maybe she's not a good example actually. Someone else that comes to mind is like Victoria Beckham, Posh Spice, who was in the Spice Girls. She I find her really interesting because when you look at her, she looks attractive, she's got the physique, the physical beauty, but she's not very sexually magnetic to me. I just don't feel I feel like she's quite closed off, you know. And I'm not the only person. I've read like a lot of articles that say something similar. So I think it's like not just being pretty or good looking for a guy. It's actually you know that being willing to receive that sexual energy and use it as well.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I thought the handshake is an interesting thing because in my life, a lot of times when you shake somebody's hand, you look in their eyes, you can feel that, and there have been other people where it felt like a wet dish rag. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
In other words, there was nothing. I mean, it was like you couldn't feel any energy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It is an interesting aspect. You know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's cool to use the book to sort of become more aware of that. To like, okay, how can I
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
this to my
How can
advantage?
how can you use it in a positive way? You know?
Yeah. And the last thing I thought of was that it's interesting what he says about between 40 and 60.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that part because I've been telling people all year, I'm like, I feel like I've been waiting my whole life to be 46, and now I'm finally here.
Yay.
I just feel like I'm finally at the point where, like, nobody's going to say you need more experience. Nobody's going to be like, you still need to do this. Like,
No.
I'm ready to, like, let my freak flag fly, be who I am, and just the right things are going to happen. And
Yeah.
it's been a pretty good year so far. It's had its ups and downs, but I've felt that way forever, too.
Mm.
So we'll see what happens.
Actually, on the topic of flying, I had a funny moment this morning. You know when there's like little moments that you can kind of just not really notice them, or you're like, oh wow, this is a bit weird. Like I was walking with Chico, and we could hear a bird in the distance making a really funny noise, and I was thinking, I've never heard that noise before. It was really distinctive. It was like caw caw caw. And I was saying to it, careful because I have a dog and he'll chase you, like in my head, because Chico chases pheasants and he loves it. Like, and so Chico's ears went up, like like this. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get this bird. And as we walked up to it, he kind of ignored it, and I was like, what is that bird? I've got to go and see it. And I walked to the edge of this sort of hill, and I saw it was a big black crow. And as I got there and I saw it, it looked at me and it flew off. But very kind of, I mean, there was no way I could get to it. It was 10 meters away from me when I saw it on a ravine. But it was so funny. It was like it just flew away very far. And it reminded me of this card that I posted on Facebook yesterday, which said, there's a picture of a little girl and it says, what if I fall? And then a voice says, but what if you fly? And that just popped into my mind, and I thought, oh, I feel like that bird was like a little messenger because it just flew off so beautifully and like went really high, and then I couldn't see it anymore because it had just flown so far away. So I don't know what that meant, but I just thought I'd share.
Oh, it's a great
That could be
observation.
my motto for today. What if I fall? But what if I fly?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people are scared to do big things because you're scared of what people will say if you fail at it. I had something like this literally yesterday where I was really reluctant to post a target for my business publicly, and I was like, why am I reluctant? I was like, oh my god, because if I don't do it, it'll be so embarrassing. But that postcard helped me to just think, okay, I'm going to do it because I have to have that belief, otherwise it won't happen. So yeah. What if we can fly way more than we think? That's what Napoleon would urge everyone to do, I believe.
Let's all fly today.
Exactly.
It's Thursday.
Well, thank you for reading, Jackie. Does anybody else want to share
Thanks
anything
for letting
before we
me. I
finish?
needed that.
No? Cool. Well, thanks for coming on.
Okay.
And I'll be here tomorrow, and perhaps see you guys as well.
Okay.
Have a great day.
You
Everybody
too.
else, have a great day.
Have a great day. Enjoy. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.